In conversation with A.D. Vancise, Angie D Vancise lives in Canada. When she's not writing, she's taking care of her three dogs and four cats and tending to her garden. Her daughter is an inspiration for all things wonderful in the world. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today A.D. Vancise. How are you doing, Angie?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me on your show. I'm very honored.
I'm so excited as well to have you on today. Having checked a snippet into your works in Amazon, I'm excited. We're here to talk about it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Hanji, I want to first say that I found the description page of your book, Eden in the Shadows, to be quite compelling on Amazon. And I would like to ask you the obvious question most authors get asked. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, that is a great question, and it's kind of a really neat answer. When I was 9, was going through some photographs
Um,
of my family at my maternal grandfather's place, and I came across one of this woman standing next to this tiny box. And of course, at 9, I didn't know what the tiny box was, but now I know that it was a little coffin. And my
mm,
grandfather was a police officer. So when I asked him about the photo, he just bolted out of the chair and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want to talk about that photo. So I said, Oh, okay, done deal. He was a very big man with very big hands.
wow.
When he said no, it meant no. So later on, after he passed,
Mm,
I then went back to my nana's to look at photos and found it again. So I asked her about it. And the photo had always intrigued me. Um, so after I wrote my first book, Cry of an Osprey, which was a completely different genre,
yeah.
um, I knew I wanted to write mystery and thriller my entire life. So I started to think more about this book and I didn't know what to write about. I contacted a medium, oddly enough, and she mentioned this sheriff in small town, and I knew immediately it was this photo. So
Uh,
who knew that it was going to take me down the path that it did? But it was based on that photo. That was the inspiration of it all.
wow. That's,
Yeah,
you never can tell. And that's one of the things I love about writing, really. The fact that inspiration can
me too.
in the most unimaginable way, in the most least expected ways. I mean, you've seen a photo that got you curious, got you asking questions. And when you ask the first
Yep,
question, you didn't get a satisfying answer. And you feel, okay,
that's right.
press on and get to know more about this. And time passed, and over again, you ask the same question. And here we are with a copy of a novel based off an inspiration from a photo. That's quite beautiful to know, really. I mean, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really was. And I thought it was from 1933, his very first case. That's really all I knew. And
Wow.
then, of course, my Nana told me a gruesome detail, which she said, I don't know if it was real or if your grandfather told me this so that I
Mm.
would stop asking. But apparently the mother had killed the baby through its ears with knitting needles. But I don't know if that was true or not. But even still, it made a good story. So
Yeah. I would like you to show the
I ran
copy of
with it.
the book to the camera. And that's a beautiful
Now,
cover
if you do
that's in
look,
here, Eden in the Shadows. That's a beautiful title name as well.
thank you.
That's
And
how
if
you
you,
come across the title name and the making of the cover. I'd like to talk about.
yeah, that was the publisher who did the cover. And
Mhm.
if you look at this really closely, the reflection, can you see that?
Yeah.
It's actually a child holding a stuffed animal,
Yeah.
which gives me goosebumps every time I see it. And that was the publisher as well. I
Wow.
have a hybrid publisher,
Oh,
so they gave me choices, and this was the one that I liked the best.
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. And just for the sake of readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what to expect in terms of some of the themes and subject lines picking up the book?
Sure. So it's told from two point of views. Evie, who finds the the photo the same way that I did and
Yeah.
gets as curious as I did. And so she sets off on this journey to find out why her grandfather didn't want to talk about it. She had left her hometown 5 years before
Mm.
and came back because of his death. So one perspective is her. She's 23 and she goes on this hunt to find out what is behind this photo. The
Wow.
other perspective is told from a character by the name of Charlie Baker. And Charlie Baker recounts his childhood living in hell, if you will, living in the foster care, living in child trafficking, being trafficked out, being seeing unimaginable satanic rituals and deaths and sacrifices. So that part of the book is a little bit tough. In the beginning of the book, I do have an important notice for people, for trigger warnings to explain where it's come from. Oddly enough, the Charlie Baker chapters are actually based on real testimonials from survivors. I
Mm.
did not make any of that up.
Wow.
So it is based on truth. Um, and as horrific as it is to learn and hear, imagine what it's like for these children. So my intention was to give a voice to the children who no longer have one, or
Mm.
the children that are still experiencing this, to let them know that they were heard.
Wow.
Because when I listened to some of these testimonials, some of the comments were horrific. They were like, "This didn't happen to you. Why are you lying?" Blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, my God, these people have literally escaped the gates of hell, and now you are accusing them of lying about it. Why would they lie about it? What do they have to gain? So
Mm.
my heart went into giving them a voice. And so, as difficult as the book can be, it really comes from a space of love. It really does.
Wow. I love that,
Yeah.
really. I love the fact that you've got an amazing, mind-blowing mission and the one that's quite compelling, really, to give a voice to
Yeah.
children who doesn't have one anymore. I think that's the most impressive and the most impactful something someone can ever give to someone else. Because it's more like you're
Oh,
impacting the life of these people, and it's quite beautiful to get to know you're doing this through literature. That's amazing.
yeah. And at the same time, I'm exposing the big child trafficking problem that the world
Reading
has,
games,
right?
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's killing two birds with one stone, if you will.
absolutely.
Um, yeah. Yeah. But the biggest inspiration was to give that voice. Once I started to do some research, and I don't even know how it took me down that path, but it instantly took me there.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe what I was seeing, hearing, reading. It was crazy.
Wow.
Um, know that that still goes on, and over 300 and some thousand kids go missing every year. And where do they go? And how does that happen if big people aren't involved? So I think it's important to bring awareness.
Very important. Very
Yeah.
important. I mean, some people could feel that this might not be something quite important or really necessary. But if for instance, God forbid, but if for instance your kid or your brother or your sister happen
Yeah.
to be part of those guys that went missing, you would see how important and how necessary this matter is. Because if it doesn't
Absolutely.
get to you, you wouldn't feel the pain of others. But if it happens to someone close, you would see the strongness, the pain, and the mystery concerning, encapsulated in this thing. So I think it's a very great thing. Great job you're doing with your works, with your books. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you.
commendable. Very
Thank you.
commendable.
It's not an easy topic. It's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to write, but when there's the passion behind it to get it out there and to give that voice and to
Mm,
let them know they've been heard, that's the main thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that want to make me to go into my next question. Why did you
Sure.
choose such a hard topic as this? And what is the writing process like? Bringing these words from your imagination or from the inspiration source to putting it down in paper and eventually having a book of it? What's the writing process like? And how did you choose this overarching, pulling at topic? I'm curious.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I read that question and I was like, I honestly set out to investigate this photo. I was trying to find whatever information I could. First of all, the biggest question was, why didn't my grandfather want to talk about it and he kept the photo? Like, why would you do that? If you didn't want to talk about it, why wouldn't you just toss the photo? So that was a big question.
Mm,
The other question was, what happened? Where was she? Who was she? Was she the mother? Was she the sister? Did she kill the baby? Did somebody else kill the baby? So I started out by writing out all of these questions and set out to answer them. And when I went, honestly, to go and research anything, child trafficking stuff just kept falling in my lap. I'd open up my computer and on Facebook there'd be something, or somebody had emailed me something, or somebody had sent me on Messenger something. And I'm like, what is going on?
how
And so,
coincidentally.
right, exactly. And so it just kind of took me down that path. And as I researched, I honestly set out to disprove what they were showing me and what they were telling me. And all I did was keep finding more proof.
Mm,
And there was a lot of feeling very ill moments with what I had to watch and what I had to witness.
mm,
And I actually was working with a medium friend of mine in California. We met in Mexico.
yeah.
And so I would have sessions with her and I would give her, things that I would talk about or find. And then she would provide a little bit more information for me. And it was this really, she's Aslan. She's actually a character in the book.
Mm,
Um, and she was very helpful in this whole process. Her name's Donna Weiss.
mm,
And it's not what she does normally. Normally, she does nutrition and reads the body to find out what the body needs. So this was way out of her realm too, which we both were learning together, which was kind of interesting. So then I would ask her, "Am I to write this as I'm hearing it and seeing it, and witnessing it?" And she said, "Yes, it has to be truth."
mm.
And so I said, okay. And so the first draft was pretty macabre, pretty visceral. So I had to tone that down quite a bit. But there still had to be that element of shock. So that's kind of where it took me. And then the writing process, honest to God, it flowed out of me. I would just start at the computer, and
Wow.
I think there was a week where I wrote 30,000 words. It just
Wow.
blah, 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 like I couldn't. And then at nighttime, I would be laying in bed sleeping. And all of a sudden at 3 in the morning, all this wording would come. And I had a notebook literally beside my bed. And
Wow.
I would have the pen ready and I would just write in the dark what had come to me because
Mm,
I a couple of nights I woke up or mornings I woke up and I thought, oh, I'll remember that when it was happening. Didn't remember any of it. So that really helped because I'd get up in the morning and wow. For instance, as an example, I was given the name Tommy Fitzgerald in this one. I don't know where it came from. I just heard it. And when I gave that to Donna, she did some research and she found this trucking company. It was a trucking design company.
yeah.
And the name was Tommy Fitzgerald, who was in the article. And apparently, they were the ones who designed the vehicles for the trafficking.
Wow.
So it would happen like that. It was just really interesting process. And whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that is how it flowed, and that is how it happened. And the big question is answered as to why my grandfather would have kept that photo and why Evie's grandfather kept it. As I was writing a confession letter from his partner, his fictional partner in the book,
Yeah.
it came out, a confessional letter, and I had no idea. So it really is true when the characters write the story for you as you go along.
Wow.
Because that was a big question the readers would want to know, right?
Yeah. I
I had
mean,
to answer.
that's an impressive writing style, writing process you've got in there. I like the fact that you mentioned these things keep popping up coincidentally once you go on social media. It just pop up in your
Yeah.
feed. And I think
Oh,
that's actually a very sign that something needs to be done.
yeah.
It's not like you're straight on Facebook and somebody keep popping up in your feed that add friend, be like, what do you want me to add friend? I'm not gonna add this person as friend. And you leave
Yeah.
and come back again the next day, the person come back again, add friend. Like, really? Is this a message? You
Yeah.
leave again, come up the third day, the fourth day, the person is still there, add friend. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna add you as friend now. Maybe there's a
I
reason this
know.
keep popping up in my head, in my feed.
Exactly.
And 30,000
Exactly.
words in 1 week, actually, that's huge. That's a lot. I'm not quite sure, maybe because
Yeah,
I've this lately when it comes to writing, but 30,000 in a week, it's a whole lot. That's quite
it was
impressive.
a lot. But it was easy. You know how they say
Wow.
if you enjoy your work, it's not work? I mean, I just couldn't
Uh,
stop. I just
it's
couldn't
true.
stop. And the other tip that I could give people if they want any,
Yeah.
is what I would do is I would stop in the middle of a sentence or a thought, because then when you go back to it the next day, you pick up right where you left off
Yeah.
and it goes again. Because if you finish it all, then all of a sudden you go back and you're like, now where do I go? And if that ever happened, I would just go to previous chapters and start editing a little bit. And
Yeah.
once I edited, then it would start to flow again. So those are some good tips for that
That's
that I found.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And now I want to go into the topics of readers' feedbacks. Because, Angie, one of the things that intrigue me the most about writing is to listen to readers' feedbacks. And you may want to agree with
Yes.
me that one of the things that makes literature to be complex and a bit, tricky is the fact that it can be interpreted in different ways by different readers based on the opinion. I mean, you've written an amazing novel, for instance, and you've published it out to the world, and one person pick it up, interpret it in a slightly different manner. Another person picks it up, interpret it in another way, and sometimes they tend to interpret it in different ways based on their opinion. Sometimes the readers might get a message intended by the author. Sometimes they might be close to getting the message. Sometimes they might be far from getting the message. And most of the times they might just hilariously misunderstand the message and interpret the books upside down, you know.
Yeah.
And as interestingly fun as this sound, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your works differently than you intended, especially for somebody who has written an amazing, lovely book in a lovely theme as yours? How does it make you feel when you have a slightly different feedbacks from readers, rather? Yeah.
Yeah, I love this question, because there are two sides to it. The
Yeah.
one side is, you read it and you think, oh, where have I gone wrong? Why did I kind of tend to look at how many saw a viewpoint the same way. So kind of like a beta reader, right? You send it out
Yeah.
to beta, they come back. If one person mentions one item and another person mentions another item, you kind of go, well, that's a one-off. That was just their interpretation. But
Yeah.
if five beta readers have an issue with a certain part, then you kind of know, okay,
Something
there's
needs to be
something
done.
wrong.
Yeah.
I missed the boat on that. I need to fix it. Um, but the one thing that and I'm okay with that because I'm sure you've been edited. The editing process stops a lot of writers from writing anymore.
You've all been
It
edited.
oh, you've got to have strong shoulders for the editing process. I mean,
Absolutely.
I my first draft in this, literally that 30,000 words were cut, like because it wasn't working. I had this Evie met this boy, and I had kind of to try and intertwine their relationship and get to build
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, I'm not writing a romance here. Like, I don't know what to do. That's why she left and came back. So you have to have a strong, and some of the feedback you take with a grain of salt because you
Yeah.
realize that it just wasn't their cup of tea, and that's okay. You're not
Yeah.
going to please every reader, especially with my content. But
Mm.
the one thing that I did take from it was at the beginning, I didn't have the important notice in my book. I
Mm.
just thought people would get it. I thought they would just know that I was writing for the voice, I was writing for these kids. But it really upset a few readers that didn't understand what was going to happen.
Mm.
So that was good feedback because that allowed me then to put that important notice in the beginning because I don't want to trigger anyone. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm not this sadistic person that wanted to write about this horrific thing and get off on it. It
Mm.
wasn't that at all. So that was good, right? So I think all in all, you have to just individualize each response and each interpretation.
Mm.
Um, and not let it get you down too much. And honestly, I would go then to somebody like J.K. Rowling and read her
Yeah.
reviews. I'd see these awful, horrific reviews, and I'd be like,
Good stuff.
okay, Cool. And Stephen King, right? Yeah, 1 stars. And I'd be like, okay, you know what? Sometimes they just give you a 1 star because they didn't like the content. Well, okay, but
Hmm.
that doesn't reflect on the writing. Was the writing good? Or they give you a 1 star and not comment. I really want that feedback. You know, I
Yeah.
did from the literary side of things, the reviews, I won an award, the Gold Award from Literary Titan
That's
for this book, 5 stars.
great.
Book Life gave editor's pick. So from my peers, it's being perceived very well, which I tend to take more from. I mean, the readers are obviously the ones who purchase the book, and that's very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I will often read bad reviews on other books to see what they want,
Yeah.
and majority I find want it to be real, want it to feel true. They
Mm.
don't want it to feel fake. So that was important for me to have real characters, real conversations, real pay attention. I don't live in Arkansas. It's based out of Arkansas. I had to go Google Arkansas, find out, did the leaves change like they do here? Did they, how do they speak? I had to do my research to make sure that it was authentic because people that live in Arkansas would read it and go, this isn't from Arkansas because it's fictional, the town I've done, but it's based in Arkansas, right? So you still have to have those facts right. And I find that that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
important, really. And getting one's research right, incorporating it in a story, it's a beautiful idea, really. It makes the fact that despite it's fiction or it's supposed to be fiction, there's still bits
Yeah.
and snippet of reality embedded in it. And yeah, I love your take on the feedbacks. And as you're speaking, I was like, even if it's possible that there is a 0 star, some readers would give some book 0 star.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And when I took some courses, just to add on one little item, I remember this one thing that I read, and it was the difference between a memoir and a fictional book. And it said memoir should read like good fiction, and good fiction should read like memoir.
Wow.
So
Wow.
basically, memoir should have some pizzazz and some, character to it, and fiction should have realism in it. So that
Mm.
stood out for me, you know?
That's a beautiful
Yeah,
statement. Just begin to think about it.
yeah, yeah,
Beautiful
yeah.
statement.
It was one of those light bulb moments. Oh, yeah, of course. So
That's
I find
amazing.
readers really want that for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I love your take on this, really. And I've been enjoying your answers to
Hey,
this question so far. Quite lovely and very
thank
great.
you.
And now, just apart
Thank you.
from Eden in the Shadows, do you have any other works you've
Mhm.
authored or say currently working on? Are there any sequel upcoming?
Oh, yes, yes. So I'm working on one called Memoirs from a Killer. It's almost a prequel to Hidden in the Shadows. And
Hmm.
that same Donna, the medium,
Hmm.
she is channeling a killer that's giving us quite a story. And then, of course, these guys don't do any of this when I'm not busy. Um, and then the other is there's three sequels to this. There's Beyond the Shadows, Behind the Shadows, and Out of Shadows. Each one will stand alone as a story, but they'll be connected.
Yeah.
So this one introduces to the child trafficking. The other ones will branch out into the facets of Hollywood
Hmm.
and different areas,
Like,
of what's yeah. Yeah. So I'm working on those. And my previous book, Cry of an Osprey, was my very first novel. And it's about my brother. He was a gay man, and it was about his first real relationship. And then I lost him to a stroke. So that's a two perspective story as well, where my Amelia is my character, and she
wow.
takes you through what we went through the hospital. And then my brother's perspective is told from that partner that he had, Brad, who's a really good friend of mine. And so he gave me some stories and how they met, and it shows their love, which was really beautiful. Um, so yeah, it's totally opposite of what
Wow.
what these books are. But this is always the genre I wanted to write in. Not child trafficking, but thriller, mystery, horror. Um,
Thriller mystery horror. I love those genre myself. I love them.
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah.
They're quite beautiful and quite lovely genres. Thank you. Thank you. I love your take on
Welcome.
this. Thank you. And
Thank you.
now, before we wrap up for today, as a published author, what sort of advice would you give a struggling writer who's looking forward to writing and publishing a book? And also, where exactly can interested viewers get a copy of your book?
Well, to answer the first question, my advice is to just put the publishing aside. Just write.
Right.
Write what you want to write, write what you need to write, get it out.
Mm,
And if you have to use the word beautiful 5 times in a paragraph, use it because the
mm.
editing process will get rid of that in no time. Don't
Yeah.
get hung up on the publishing, don't get hung up on that. Write because you love to write.
Mm,
Once you are done your book, find an editor, a really good editor. Do research, find one that edits your genre. Because if you, for instance, My Cry of an Osprey, I couldn't really use that same editor because it's a completely different genre. She
oh,
did review it. She was the reason that I changed Evie to coming back after 5 years and
oh,
forwarding the story, starting in the middle. But then I had to get a mystery editor. So do your research because the more rejection letters you get, the harder it is on the person and the
mm,
more it makes you give up. And you might be getting rejected not because of your work, but because you've sent it to the wrong people.
mm,
So,
oh,
and don't let the editing process really diminish your spark. You do still have a voice to say, listen, this is why I put that in there. This is why I did that. So how do we make this work? And
mm,
they will work with you because the editing process really does, they know their stuff. They know what sells, they know what works.
yeah.
And at each time my book would come back, guys, it was amazing the difference it made. It
Wow.
was amazing. Like it was a whole new story. It was really, it changed it in such a positive way. So just don't take anything personally. It is just to better, right? Everybody wants it to be better.
Mm,
But the publishing, everybody gets hung up on, and then it stops the writing. So just don't let it stop the writing.
yeah.
Just, it'll come. The publishing will come. There's these wonderful new hybrid publishers, which is who I used, called Atmosphere Press. You pay to have it published, but it includes the cover, it includes 2 edits, it includes copy editing, it includes some publishing and sending out to your, to get it reviewed because reviews are very important.
Okay.
They also help you to know where your book is failing and where it's coming together, right? Um, and as far as where they can get my book, they can go to my website, which is advanciseauthor.com. They can
Mm,
order it right off there, or they can go to Amazon. Um, they can buy it on Chapters. They can buy it on, which is a Canadian thing. They can buy it, I believe, at Barnes and Noble as well. I think it's available on there.
yeah.
But the best place is either my website or Amazon. I would say the quickest and the easiest.
Yeah.
And both books, the same author name. So, yeah.
That's quite amazing. I need to say that I love your advice for struggling right.
Oh, thank you.
Quite beautiful, quite amazing, quite educative. It's one that they can learn from as well. And I love the fact
Yes.
that you mentioned all of these things in a quite beautiful and quite educative manner. And I also left a
Oh,
link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Angie Vancise books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on our website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to our social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Angie, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. And also, this is more than awesome. Very great, quite exciting, very pulling as well, having this conversation with you around your beautiful title. Thank you so much for coming on.
thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
It
I
was a
enjoyed
pleasure.
it thoroughly.